Okay, I think we're live.
Our book's
We're
falling.
live. All right. Yay! Hey, everybody.
Yay.
Welcome to our first book club meeting, our first Fragdoll Community Book Club meeting. Woohoo! We're finally
Finally.
doing it. Yay! It's been a long time coming. We tried it before on Google Hangouts, and we failed so hard. But I think that this is going to work a little bit better, and we got all the bugs fixed and sorted out. So, anyways, here we are, our first Fragdoll Community Book Club. All right, so we need to tweet out this, and I will post in our event page so people can come join us if somebody else wants to tweet it out. All right.
That
Might be a little tough, but I will see what I can do. It'll be interesting to see, if anybody comes and hangs out with us, because I know the four of us have been excited to chat about these books, but I don't know if anyone else is. We'll see.
Well, I mean, you can say books and games.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Either or, something will bring people.
All right. So the books that we have read, a couple months ago, we put the vote to the community about which books everybody wanted to read. The books that we read were The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
And then Uglies by Scott Westerfeld. And I'd seen The Last Unicorn when I was a kid, so I was familiar with the story, and I know that the animated movie from the 80s, maybe, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
is was relatively close to the book, I'm told. I didn't
Extremely.
Yeah.
Close.
I didn't quite make it through The Last Unicorn all the way. But I did read all of Uglies. So I am well versed on that one. What about you guys? Did you guys read both books?
I read just Uglies.
Yeah. I I didn't even finish the Uglies. I feel bad. I'm like way behind all my stuff.
I did all my homework.
All right.
Kind of check this out.
Well, then, which one do you guys want to talk about first? Maybe we should talk about Uglies.
Yeah, I think Uglies.
All right.
I just tweeted, by the way, in case you want to retweet from the Fragdoll account.
Okay, will do. Hold on, let me figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I have a cold.
You sound a lot better than you did, though.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot better. Okay.
Alright.
Okay. So I see that it went out. Let me it went out on the Fragdolls channel.
Retweeted.
Yeah.
Yep, same.
Yeah. All right. Yay, it's happening.
Finally.
All right, so Uglies. Does anyone want to start off the first impressions? Or how about this? Let's talk about what you expected and why you wanted to read it.
Should we do like a little overview of what it's about, maybe?
Yeah, let's just talk about why we wanted to read it, what we had heard about it, things like that, and what we expected, and then we'll do a brief overview of it. Daniela, do you want to start?
Sure. So, I'm kind of a book cover type person. Like, I do pay attention to the book covers and think it's really important. Like, looking at this book cover, I don't know if you can tell. Like, I immediately read the description and then thought of that Twilight Zone episode, Eye of the Beholder. I don't know if any of you have heard of it.
Yeah.
It's similar.
Yeah.
Similar.
Very similar. And I immediately came back to that and thought, oh my gosh, this is such a cool idea, different take on it. That idea of, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and these people that are wanting to be beautiful, but there's a struggle there. What if you lived in a world where you could be beautiful? Would you really want that? Um, but well, I guess I'll talk about like that's expectations. That was like me really being really excited of the story, but what ended up happening is a little different, like from my expectations. So
Yeah. Well, I also like I saw the name first, and because I didn't know anything about this book, I didn't know anything about this author or anything, and so I saw the name first, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then once I also saw the cover of the book, because there was a couple different covers, the one that you showed, and then another one with like a young girl and like half of her face, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. So then I looked it up online and read it, and I was like, wow, what a cool. I really like futuristic kind of science fiction, and so it takes place in kind of that realm. So
yeah,
that really appealed to me, and I also was expecting more than what I got.
yeah.
I agree.
What about you, Carolyn?
I'd actually read it before we did it for the book club. So it had been a long time, so I read it again, and it was the same kind of concept. I'm kind of fascinated by the idea of a society where everybody looks kind of the same and idealized versions of beauty. So it was nice to read it again, and I also expected more. It wasn't one of my favorite books, I have to say. I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible, but for all the
Yeah.
great reviews that I saw about it, and everybody saying this is the best book ever, I really expected something
More.
spectacular. Yeah.
What about you, Catmint?
I don't have a lot of experience with dystopian sci-fi or anything futuristic like that because I'm like a huge fantasy buff. So I kind of jumped at the chance when I saw this because I was like, hey, that sounds kind of cool. And to be honest, I mean, like, when I read the very first sentence, it actually really caught me because the very first sentence was, the early summer sky was the color of cat vomit. And, you know, I thought that actually really hooked me because, like, if that doesn't explain the frustrations of the main character, then I don't know what does. Because, I mean, if someone has, like, that negative of an attitude right off the bat, you can expect a little bit of, like, you know, character growth throughout it. But it fell flat.
All right. So for those of you watching that don't know anything about this book, it's about a young girl named Tally Youngblood. She lives in a futuristic world where they have separated two people groups. So you have people who are ugly, and then you have people that at their 16th birthday they go for an operation and they become pretties. And this society has separated the two. So the uglies live on one side of the river, and the pretties live in the city on the other side of the river. And the pretties are all bubbly, and they do nothing but party and have fabulous lives and do nothing. They just are pretty.
Too.
Yeah. Yeah. And the uglies are all, you know, young, under 16, and they are living in dorms. I don't know. It wasn't quite clear about how they.
Pretty town.
Yeah, like New Pretty Town and Uglyville and
Rumblyville.
yeah. So they're separated. Anyways, all she wants in her whole life is to be pretty. So she's counting down the days for when she turns 16, so that she can have the operation and be whisked away to Prettyville, or Pretty Town, or whatever it's called again. And so her and her friends, they sneak over there and watch the pretties party and dream about, you know, days when they're going to be pretty. And they, you know, play tricks and get into kind of little, like, not really serious trouble, but they definitely don't do what they're told. And I thought that was pretty cool. But what else? What else about the story am I missing? Anyways, her friends slowly become pretty one by one.
Yeah.
She meets another young girl that doesn't want to be pretty and runs away. And so the special circumstances, they're the people that enforce, keep everybody in line. They come get Tally, and there's like, we're not going to turn you pretty unless you rat your friend out and tell us where she is. She ran away to this place called Smoke, and it is like the Rebel Alliance. People that have rebelled against the system. They don't want to be pretty. They just want to live out in nature and not have to deal with all the stuff that's going on in the cities, and they just want to be left alone. So she runs away to there, and Special Circumstances then sends Tally on a mission to go find her. And mayhem ensues, and anyways, I don't know, should we, like, do spoilers for this? I mean, it's really the only way we can talk about it.
It's, look, there are no rules in the club. You can spoil.
Okay, so if anybody is watching this and you haven't read the book, we're totally going to spoil it. But it's not that great of a book, so feel lucky that we're telling it to you. It'll probably be more entertaining this way anyways. And there you have it. So Tally has been kind of blackmailed into going and finding her friend, because her friend left her a detailed note with instructions on how to get to Smoke that only she would understand. So she goes through this, all, reading the instructions on how to get to Smoke, and there's all this just peril, and it's hard to get to, and she doesn't really understand the instructions, but she finally makes it to Smoke, and it's the first time that she has seen people living without the city providing for them, because they kind of live in a smart world with smart cities where everything is provided for them, everything is taken care of, everybody has all the luxuries that they need. So out in Smoke, it's rural living, like they're living in small huts, and they're making their own clothes and making their own food, and God forbid cutting down trees and killing animals for food, stuff that she's never seen or never been exposed to. So she doesn't like it at first. She has like a tracking device on her that she's supposed to like push the button once she gets to Smoke, and the specials are going to come raid the village and arrest everybody. Well, she doesn't hit the button when she gets there because she starts living in this way and starts to like it, enjoy it. There's a boy there that she meets.
There's a boy.
That's an ugly. He's never been to society. He was born in Smoke. His parents were doctors from the city that had been turning people pretty. They rebelled against the system and fled, and they started this place. So he is their offspring. She falls in love with him, but her best friend that she was there to find also loves him. So, but he likes Tally. So there's kind of some turmoil there, a little triangle. Her friend is mad at her because the boy likes her better. Anyway, so once she decides, okay, this is what I want. I don't want to be pretty. I want to live here and Smoke with my new boyfriend, David. It's a bummer. My friend isn't really into me anymore, and we're not friends, but whatever, I got the guy. So she destroys the beacon or whatever. And
I think it was a necklace, right?
It was like a necklace that had a transmitter or something in it. Well, in the process of destroying it, it activates and sets it off. So the next morning, Special Circumstances comes, raids the village, takes everybody prisoner. David, her boyfriend, gets away. His parents didn't get away. They're captured, I think. I can't remember, yeah. They're captured, right? And
when the dad.
Yeah. And Tally then is upset that they're there. She fights them. She tries to get away. And I'm having trouble remembering exactly what happens after that, Gypsy Fly.
After that, they got away. David, which is the boy, is able to. I think David gets away, and then there's Tally. She comes and gets David, so they kind of.
So they're together.
Yeah.
He doesn't know, though. He doesn't know that she's the one that turned him in just yet.
At that point, he doesn't know. They forcibly take out the friend that has the surgery. What's her name?
I don't remember.
Shay.
Yeah.
Shay's had the surgery. They forcibly take her out. She's suddenly turned into kind of like a dumb, kind of weird girl.
Yeah, so they
she's
capture people and then do the surgery on them.
Yeah. And then I think they end up beating, what's her name? Dr. Cable.
Cable.
Yeah. They knock her over the head. So she's unconscious. I think they have her body or something like that. they're wrecking all kinds of havoc, and then they make it out of the building. So.
Yeah, so they went to go rescue all the people from smoke that were captured. And
a whole lot of hoverboard action.
A lot of hoverboards. It's kind of the coolest thing is the hoverboards sound really neat. And they would have to wear crash bracelets. So they have bracelets on their wrists and their ankles, and I think around their stomach too, and they ride hoverboards, and it stabilizes you on your hoverboard so that you can ride really high and really fast. And if you fall off, if you fall off and you're over the grid, because there's like a metallic grid under the ground in the cities that you're able to hoverboard and stuff, and so if you fall off, your crash bracelets will stop you from hitting the ground and you'll be safe. So I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, so they take their hoverboards, they go rescue their friends in this like maximum security special circumstances fortress. Somehow the two of these people, one dude has never seen technology in his whole life, and this like 16-year-old girl break into this place, rescue all of their friends from smoke, except Shay, because she's now been turned into a pretty, and she has seen the light and doesn't think that they should be living in smoke, and David's stupid, and I want to go be a pretty. So that's her thing. But she still hates Tally. She's still mad at her for stealing her boyfriend, but not as mad because she's more bubbly-headed now, and you know, being mad is takes too much time. Anyway, so they rescue them, and I get confused because I went and read all the rest of the books, so I don't know where in the story it goes, if it ends there, if it keeps going.
It stops when Tally says, "Make me pretty."
Yes.
Before she gets both pretty.
Yeah, that's the very last line, yeah.
Yeah, does she learn, but does she learns in the first book that when they make you pretty, they cut your brain, so that makes you docile, it makes you not to have any, you know, thoughts of your own. It makes you stupid. You don't want to do anything. So it's a way to keep society from rebelling and thinking for themselves. It keeps them under control. It keeps them, you know, calm and controllable when you turn pretty-headed. So the doctor, David's parents, the dad dies. Dr. Cable kills him or something, or he dies in the when the camp is raided somehow. So the mom, David's mom, is able to create a cure for being pretty. And what the cure does is it says like little nanots in your head that, I don't know, fix whatever the operation does to turn you stupid and controllable. So it fixes that, and there's 2 pills. And so Tally, they want to give the pills to their friend Shay, who's had the thing. But Shay doesn't like Tally anymore. She just wants to be pretty, so she doesn't want to take the pills. So the doctor's like, well, we can't give her the pills because it's against her will. And I'm not going to be like special circumstances and force people to be a certain way against their will. So Tally then, it says, okay, here's the plan. I'm going to get captured, I'm going to become pretty, and then then I'll take the pills. I'll write a note to myself saying I want to take the pills so that when you come to me with the pills, I'll take them. So she spends the whole book wanting to be pretty, and so she finally gets to be pretty. Except for then she decides she doesn't want to be pretty, but then she's going to be pretty because it's for a better cause, so she can take the cure and help cure people. So that's how the book ends. And I went and read the rest of them because I wanted to know what happened after that. And the next book is just about her wanting to be something else, and she spends the whole book trying to be something else. And then after that book, she spends the next book wanting to be something else, and spends the whole time chasing after that. And there's never a payoff. So I wouldn't recommend reading the rest of it. There you have it. All right.
I guess maybe we should, like, what impressions do you guys have, like, after reading it, for everybody else? I know me and Spectre have been talking a lot, so, like, Elisa and And Carolyn, like as far as your after reading the book, what was your experience?
I was bothered a lot, but I mean, I like the world building, but essentially when you become pretty, your only job is to be pretty and get drunk and party and have fun. So I was kind of wondering about the rest of society. I understand that a lot of it was supposed to be automated, but food, sanitation, all that other stuff that you need for a society to operate correctly.
Actually, can I jump in really quickly?
Yeah.
That is a really good point, and that's something that kept me from finishing the book. Like, even though at a point you leave society, at the beginning I was like, wait, how does society function? So at 16, nobody works anymore? What?
Yeah.
What in the world is going on? Like, what? There's no economy, no society that I can think of that would function like that. And I was like, well, this lost all credibility for me. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, they don't really address that, but they kind of do.
Oh, do they?
Because after you turn everybody docile and controllable and all dummies, then how are people going to get anything done? Who's taking care of all these bubble-headed pretties?
Well, yeah, and it's not like having parties every night is cheap. Like, you still have to make all this, like...
Someone has to throw the party.
Yeah.
Yeah, so society has been separated. So you have, like, the masses that become pretty. You have the littles that are still ugly. And then what they've done is they have middle pretties who are older, who have had the operation kind of, because they haven't taken the lesions, they haven't put the lesions in their brain. So those are the people like firefighters, people that need to operate at higher levels of, thought and stuff. They don't make them stupid. So it's really thin. The thin storyline. Because, like, you don't live with your parents. So when you're a little baby, you live with your parents, but then you go and you live in a dorm when you are an ugly. Except for if your parents are pretties, why would they want to take care of kids?
I don't know.
It just...
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, which they don't. I think they just kind of birth them, pop them out, and then kind of send them out into, like, a boarding school when they're growing up. I get the feeling that they never really live with them for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
I know.
And
some of these comments are pretty funny if you're looking at Twitch.
Yeah.
I love the kid. So what DFC said, and in the book, when you die, you're in an endless game of Shootmania.
Yeah.
Like this, I didn't even think about that. Like, it is kind of a perfect one.
Yeah. But the story is very thin. However, there are cool aspects. I did like a lot. I like the fact that the houses where you live are smart houses. So the walls are like, they provide everything you need. They provide your clothes. Like, you can go up to this wall thing and, like, an outfit will pop out. So everything is automated. So you don't need, like, if you want food, it just pops out of your wall. Like, like a Star Trek.
Yeah.
So, like, so they don't need a lot of people running the city because everything is controlled by robots and systems and, tech. So that kind of, I don't know, makes it a little bit easier to swallow, but there was a lot of it was like, as I'm reading out loud, my husband's making so much fun of me. He's like, why are you even reading this book? I'm just like, because I'm like, oh my gosh, listen to this. And I'd read him something and he'd be like, that's so stupid. I was like, okay.
I did feel, I don't know, embarrassed, like, those types of, what were you talking about? Like, I was saying something, it's like PBS versus Lifetime. Yeah, like, you watch that Lifetime movie by yourself, and PBS, you're fine with people walking in, you watching Downton Abbey, you're like, yeah, I'm watching Downton Abbey. You're watching the Lifetime movie, and you're like, oh, let me shut the door, let me lower the volume to this little, stupid.
Yeah,
that's how I felt the entire time.
Yeah, it's definitely the kind of book where you can tune out.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to read. It's very simple. It's, the concepts are very simple. And it's almost like you roll your eyes, like, okay, uglies and pretties. Like, you couldn't have come up with something, a sunscreen patch. Instead of putting sunscreen, you put a sunscreen patch on, which I think is brilliant. But like the names of things aren't really thought out. Like it's just face value on everything, pretty much.
I giggled the entire time with what I said, the future speak, the toothbrush pill, little crumblies. Every time I read crumblies, I couldn't like not laugh.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know. I mean, I did think about the intended audience, and like me, I remember me being a teenager, and even being a teenager reading this, I would have still like been like, oh my god, give me a break, like. No.
Yeah, and yeah, there's really no moral to this story. You think going in that it's gonna be like, you know, where it's like talking to young girls and how you need to like yourself for who you are, and you're pretty no matter what, and you don't, you know, need operation. You don't need plastic surgery to be pretty. It's who you are inside, and that's never really the message at all. And in fact, in the other books, I had a really hard time. They like glorify cutting.
Yes.
And I had a really hard time with that because I'm like, I'm like reading and I'm like, I can't, because young people are going to read this and they're going to think, oh, I could become clear-headed and really like focused if I cut myself, you know? And like there's groups within the pretties, there's like different cliques. And so some cliques are like the troublemakers, and some cliques are the cutters, and some cliques are the, you know, like, so this clique, the cutter clique, you know, they're really focused and level-headed, and they're like living on the edge because they're cutters, and so the main character becomes a cutter so that she can stay focused. Like that's messed up. It's horrible. It's like, so like if you have young girls, don't, you know, in like junior high or something, like impressionable young girls, I would never want them to read this book ever, or this whole series.
Are they making a movie? I remember hearing something about a movie being based on the book. I'm not sure if that would be very interesting.
I've read that too. Yeah, I was thinking who would play the characters, like Tally.
I don't know.
I immediately thought Angelina Jolie or Nicole Kidman for Dr. Cable.
Yeah,
like, kind of feel.
Nicole Kidman would be good because she's kind of like really. But how do you think that they would do it? Do you think they would be, when they're uglies, do you think they would give them ugly makeup, or would they just be normal looking? And then when they're pretties, they're like. What?
I think they would be normal looking, and even in our society, like now, they would be good looking.
Yeah.
Because what I'm thinking, it is like the Twilight Zone Eye of the Beholder, where it just looks normal and even attractive to us, but to them, they're atrocious, and they see themselves weird.
Didn't I, or in the beginning of the book, when like they have a program where they can like take a 3D model of their their face as an ugly, and then they can like tailor it to be the pretty that they want, and it's almost like it seemed it was like what's the name of that movie, Avatar, where they had like the big eyes, and it was like they clearly look different, like humanoid but different.
Yeah. Well, the specials in the book, the specials are the government people that have been modified to be superhuman. So the description of the specials is pretty interesting, and I always wondered what that, like, I always thought of, like, I don't know, there's like a James Bond character that has like sharp teeth and he's like super massive. I don't remember if it's like,
oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he has.
He always scared me. Was he on Moonraker?
Yeah, and he has the sharp teeth. Well, because
Moonraker,
the specials have
James
that
Bond
same
villain.
kind of sharp, jagged teeth, and they look really fierce and different. And they have their bones are augmented, their muscles are, so they can jump really high, they can run really fast, they can, you know, they're superhuman beings because they're basically like the police. Which I don't know why you would need superhuman special police if everybody is stupid bubbleheads.
Yeah.
You know, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. But, you know, and why does the city even care that there are people living out in the boondocks that want to, you know, go to the bathroom in the woods and, you know, sit around a campfire? Why do they even care?
I think
Non-conforming.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, sometimes that's really all it takes is just to be a nonconformist for people to be like, nope, we can't have that, you know?
Yeah. But I always thought this just seems kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, like why didn't they just leave them alone? You know, they were just out there in the smoke in their own little, not really affecting anything. But I think what Dr. Cable was saying is that the very idea disrupts their community that they're building. Just this idea that they're like a myth almost. These kids want to go explore the ruins and then see what they can find and then come back and be pretty. And then they continue this cycle telling littles and telling other people before they have the surgery that there's this community out there, you know, you can go out there and see what it's about, and then that just disrupts the whole thing for them.
Yeah.
So just the idea of it.
Yeah, I guess so.
What did everybody think of Tally herself as kind of like a character?
I think she had, honestly, the most personality of any other character in the book at the very least, but that's probably because, well, when I was reading it, I actually wondered what it would be like if the book were written from a different perspective. Like, what is this written in? This was third person limited, I think. If it were at least like third person omniscient or something like that, at least we could have at least had a little bit more insight into the characters. I felt like I could understand Tally a little bit. I mean, she was so like ridiculously starry-eyed the entire time. It's like, oh, I feel like I want to protect the big-eyed pretties because they're so pretty and things like that. And like, she eventually, you know, like, oh man, I met this guy and he's kind of ugly, but I'm getting fluttery feelings even though he's ugly. What does this mean? You know, so I mean, she gets a little bit of like character growth in there. And then once Shay's changed, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I feel all fluttery because Shay's pretty now, even though I was just getting used to the concept of people being ugly. So, I mean, with I at least think that she had some resolve, and because she's like martyring herself at the end, I think that at least from just reading the first book, since I haven't read the others, at this point in time it looks promising for her. But, her compared to the rest of the characters, I mean, I could probably write a thesis on David and how he's like a cardboard creeper. He has like no personality, and all of a sudden there's like this love going on, and it's like the very first time that like Tally was talking to David, she's like eyeballing her and stuff, and then she eventually like touches her shoulder or something. And if I just met a person and they would come up on me and they're like touching my shoulder, it's like, who are you? And I'm like, we're hardly on a first name basis. What are you doing? But apparently that means love or something in Mr. Westerfield's language.
Yeah.
But,
well, I think he had. I don't know. You're right. The other characters weren't very well developed. However, I think they were more interesting. You know, like the idea of them was a lot more interesting. Like Dr. Cable, I found interesting. Mm-hmm. I liked the idea of a doctor David's mom, who knew about what was going on. Like when you meet them and they're living in their, like, I kind of envisioned like a hobbit house with their drinking tea surrounded by piles of stuff that they've like collected, but they don't really have anywhere to put it anymore. And you know, like I thought those people were interesting. Tally to me was, you know, she does have, throughout the books, she does have a character arc, and she does grow a bit, but it's just a different level of the same thing. You know, like in each book she's striving for something that she doesn't have, and she doesn't really learn from her past. But she grows as far as like being more secure, because she does start out as kind of like a doe-eyed, like, you know, wow, it's a big world out there, into, you know, becoming somebody who jumps out of a hot air balloon and, you know, is falling, you know, into the dark and doesn't know if she's going to be able to, her hoverboard is going to catch her or not, but she goes for it, and, you know, she takes a lot of risks, and she does become, you know, more adventurous and not so scared of everything. and, you know, does amazing things, but she never really learns from any of her mistakes and doesn't ever get satisfied with what she's got.
Yeah, that was my issue, I think, with a lot. Since I also read the whole series, I won't spoil it, I promise, but she's never satisfied. She keeps changing herself and changing herself, changing her appearance, changing the way she thinks, and she's never happy. She's never finds, it's like she loses her identity kind of by the end of the series. It's like, I don't know, there's nothing of her left.
Yeah, there isn't. There's nothing of her left, and they, you know, I don't know what his deal was, the writer, and where he was going with this, but he doesn't really bring her anywhere. You know, like, she ends up, I'm totally gonna spoil it for you guys. She she becomes a pretty, all right? And so then, because she is able to transcend the bubbly-headedness, because she's so special, she can, because apparently when your adrenaline is going, or there is, you know, something that helps you focus your mind, because you have these lesions when you're pretty, so it makes you really bubbly-headed and fuzzy. But if there's pain, if there is, you know, pain from cutting or falling and injuring yourself, or adrenaline from jumping off the top of a building with what are those parachute jackets or whatever they're called, you know, like yeah, and so that kind of adrenaline rush makes you have moments of clarity. So her and her clique that she the crims, like the criminals, her clique of crims that she joins, they play tricks, so is what they call it. So they just cause lots of trouble. And because when they're causing trouble, their adrenaline is going and they're able to have moments of clarity. So they can have this, you know, I don't know, like a sharper mind and not be so bubbly headed. So Special Circumstances recognizes that she has this gift of transcending the bubbly-headedness, and so they want her to come work for them and be a special. And it's interesting, in the second book, she's been turned pretty. They come with the cure, and they're like, look, you said you would take the cure, so here's the cure, and you take it. Well, she gets scared, and her new boyfriend, her pretty boyfriend, is there. And so they're like, let's take it together. There's 2 pills. Let's take it together. So he takes a pill, and she takes a pill. And she thinks the pill's working because, look, she has moments of clarity, and she's transcending the bubbleheadedness because of this cure that she took. The cure works. Let's spread the news. The cure works. So David's mom makes more cure and spreads it, and pretties start becoming smart and clear-headed. Well, the cure comes in 2 parts. You need both pills for the cure to work. So one pill is these nanos or nanites or something that go into your brain and eat away all the lesions. And then the other pill is to kill the nanos or the nanites or whatever they are. So when her and her boyfriend both take one of the pills, he takes the nanites, she takes the cure for the nanites. So the nanites just eat his brain, and he slowly becomes handicapped, to put it nicely. And they don't know why. It's like a whole thing. Like, we have to get him help. Something's wrong with his brain. You know, and he's trying to put on a brave face like everything's fine. And she's just, you know, being clear-headed all on her own. So they come and try and recruit her. She's not into it, but she ends up, in the next book, becoming a special, where they augment her body with all of this special stuff so she can run faster, jump higher, and be super awesome. And now she's sent to hunt down her friends who have run away to start the new smoke, like the new rebel base out there somewhere. And so now she's hunting her old friends, and I mean, she never gets satisfied with being pretty, and then she's not satisfied with being a special, and she's just unhappy doing everything. And you know, she wanted to be with David, and that didn't work out. So then she finds this new guy. She wants to be with him, but he's getting his brain eaten, so that doesn't work out. It's just, you know, like, you're waiting for the payoff, and you're waiting for like something to happen, and nothing ever happens.
Sorry, that sounds awful. I'm so glad I didn't finish this book.
I read them all. I I was like invested. Now that I'm invested in the story, I want to see what happens, and I want to, I'm waiting for, the payoff, and it just never comes.
It's kind of like reading a series like Animorphs, where it's just nothing ever happens to you, the story. Like two separate stories that don't connect at all. That's what I felt. I also read all the Animorphs books, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason I kept reading this book is because I wanted more than it was going to give me, and I was expecting to get it at some point. And I really did like, the idea of the world that it was set in. I liked all the tech stuff. I liked, their rings. So they have to wear these rings when they're in the city so that doors will open for them, so that elevators will work, because the ring then connects to the tech that's in the city, and the bridges, the transports, everything. So I thought that was pretty cool. There's some cool stuff in there about that.
My most favorite thing in the entire book, the hoverboards. That was what I take away from this book, were hoverboards, and I just thought of Snow Crash with the one girl. I think she kind of hoverboards. And then I thought of Back to the Future, which, I mean, they're joking about it in comments. But that was, I couldn't take anything out of it. And I'm really good with, I have really high tolerance with books that are dense, or, there's really nothing in a book. I'm really good at just kind of picking it up. Where did Spectra go?
You have to get a power cable, so I'll be right back.
Okay. But it just, you back? Spectra?
Not yet, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm back. I just had to get a power cable.
But, yeah, hoverboards, and then the idea that if you turn into a pretty, you have everything you want, and then that, it left you on that moral, like, it just felt kind of cheap to me, and I didn't get anything from Tally as an individual. It seemed like she was led from one thing to the other, and at first I thought that was part of the writing. I was hoping that Scott Westerfield was making that part of the narrative and part of her character, but in the end, it just, like, she was trying to find herself as a teenager, something like that, but in the end, it was just like, hoverboard and boy. That was my take.
And it was interesting how it turned out to be more of a commentary on, the use of oil and cutting down trees and eating meat, and it turned into more of that, like
everyone,
yeah, like the Rusties, who they called the people of our time. How they ruined the earth with war and violence, and their greed and their oil and cutting trees down. It was a lot of preachy stuff like that.
Yeah, it wasn't quite clear on if he was trying to promote a pro-environmental message or not, because Tally goes to smoke and she's horrified when they're cutting down trees. Apparently they've been taught that that's this terrible thing to do in society, and that's why the Rusties all died or whatever. But later in the series, I don't want to spoil it. I guess we've already spoiled it. It doesn't really matter.
Spectra already spoiled it. It's been spoiled.
But later in the series, when they go to the other city, they see some of the other cities, it didn't really sound like that was the perception everywhere. And also, not everyone has the same perception of rebels, and it didn't mesh well for me at all. I don't know. It confused me, and it was not good continuity.
Yeah, because when you get into the other cities, you find out that only Tally's cities are the ones that's super controlling. That other city was super, you can have any kind of mods that you want to your body. You can have, like, a duck face if you want. It's not a big deal. We can do all of that. Like, they weren't super uptight. They were like, everybody can kind of do what they want. So it was just mostly Tally's city that was controlling and had evil people running it and whatever.
Oh, some crappy luck.
Yeah.
Somebody in comments has a question, and I don't know, whoever read this series, maybe you can answer it. DFB, serious question. Did the book go into if two pretties had children and two uglies had had children, or if a pretty and an ugly had children, is the prettiness or ugliness hereditary?
No, so the prettiness is completely cosmetic. It's a procedure, plastic surgery that they do to you, where they augment your face and your body and change you to be like a Barbie doll. And they didn't. I don't remember what they talked about. If they mentioned sex or how that works, how they get more people, how people are born. I don't remember.
I think they're just. Go ahead.
But I don't think it addressed it at all, if I remember correctly, because I read the rest of the series recently, which I thought was interesting. I think something I find with a lot of male young adult authors is going to sound really biased, but a lot of them don't like venturing into that territory of procreation and don't really they're not very good at like romance, writing romance between the characters or believable romance. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because I read a lot of young adult, and it's something that I found to be similar between all the books, and this one definitely fell into that category.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move.
The part where they... Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. One more comment. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that there was a part in the first book, at least, where they very briefly went into like Callie's parents came by to visit or something like that, and they were pretty, and she like spoke to them, and it was on a very it was very interesting because she apparently used to call them like mom and dad, and then by the time she was an ugly, she ended up calling them by their first name. So I don't know. I mean, I was led to believe that she was like genetically like their daughter, but other than that, they actually didn't really mention where exactly Callie came from or her childhood. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, they mentioned a little bit that when you're a little, you live with your parents, and then when you're not a little anymore, like a baby, you live with your parents, and then when you're an ugly, when you get a little bit older, you go and you live and you're cared for by caregivers or something like that. I don't know.
You know what? I was going to say, I preferred Shay after the operation. I'm going to say
Yeah,
it.
me too.
She was funnier. She's like, bubbly, what? Just like, she was the most interesting, like, dumb character, but at the same time, she still seemed kind of smart.
Yeah, but her character
funny.
gets really dark, though, and later in the book.
Oh, does it?
She's the one that starts cutting and starts the cutters, and then she turns into a special, too. And she's a special first, I think.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know. All right, so Last Unicorn. Let's talk about that. I started reading this book, and it's absolutely beautifully written. Beautifully written. Like, it's compared to the Uglies, it made the Uglies look like it was written by a kindergartner. But this book was beautifully written. However, I lost interest really quickly. And it's like, I don't know if it's just have the emotional attention span of a 12-year-old, and that's why I couldn't get into this, or maybe I am too old for this book. I don't know. I couldn't decide, because when I was a kid, I really loved the 80s cartoon, The Last Unicorn.
The animated movie.
Yeah. It was awesome, the animated movie. It was beautiful, it was awesome, and I remember really digging it. So I was surprised that as I'm reading the book, I'm just like, I couldn't get through it.
Well, with me, I just couldn't get out. I watched the movie before I ever read the book, which seems like I'm a bad geek. Like, I always wanted to read the book, but I did see the movie first. I think it was 1982. And I remember, like, a little story, like, we were in New York, and we were walking by this video store, and on the rack was The Last Unicorn, and then, Lord of the Rings, the Bashiki, the old animated movie, and he's like, pick one, and my sister picked The Last Unicorn, and I picked The Lord of the Rings, but we ended up like switching in the end, and I fell in love with the movie. And reading the book, all I could think of was that movie, and I couldn't get that was the case for me. Like, all I could see were those images of the movie, and that's kind of why they tell you read the book first before you watch a movie of a book. Mm-hmm. But it's really authentic to the book. Like, it really sticks, almost word for word, description to the... Wow. So if you did see the cartoon, if you saw the anime movie, it's like you practically read the book.
Yeah.
So, and I finished, like, I read it in maybe in two or three settings. It is kind of like, I think we were talking before, the description versus PBS and Lifetime. Like, this was PBS.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, like, why we can get through the Uglies and not so much The Last Unicorn. Like, is it something it takes a little longer to digest? Is it our reading styles have changed? Do we not have time anymore to now that we're just like, oh, this is a quick read, let's do this, and this takes longer, The Last Unicorn takes longer to read. Like, I don't know. But I did prefer it, obviously, to Uglies.
Yeah. It's definitely a better written book. It's just, I started reading it, I'd read it many, many years ago, and so I started reading it right after I finished Uglies, and I just couldn't transition. I don't know, maybe I had like overload of simple dialogue, and I was reading it, and I was like, oh, I can't do this. It's a great book. I just couldn't finish it this time.
Yeah, I think maybe it's because, like, when I have a lot going on, you know, I've got kids, I've got a family, I'm working, like, I think that it was easier for me to sit down and read Bubblegum than it was for me to sit down and read something, you know, that requires me to do some thinking and requires me to kind of engage in it a bit, you know?
And then David Ma, he also read the book. He's part of our book club and Fragdoll community. I'm just going to read what he wrote when we talked about it on Goodreads, which we have the Fragdoll book club discussion. He said, so I really enjoyed The Last Unicorn as a classic, sad yet beautiful fantasy story, and detailed drawings were a really nice touch. That depends on the version you have. I have this one with, like, no drawings. But I felt I would have appreciated even more if I had read it back in middle school. A few years ago, I watched and loved the 80s animated movies, so I was really happy to see this as one of the options this month. I was surprised to discover that the movie was pretty faithful to the book, scene by scene, even down to the exact dialogue. I would definitely recommend to anyone who finishes this book to see the movie next if they haven't already. One of my favorite parts of many was when the great magician Mubrick was having a fit, about to destroy everything with his magic, and the lady Almethea, I can't say her name now, Amalthea, completely stops him easily. So I guess kind of we had all the same takeaway from if we saw the animated movie, it didn't ruin it for us, but it's just like once you see a movie based on a book, those are the images you have in your head of those characters. And I couldn't get Mia Farrow's voice out of my head. Like in the movie, that person who plays the unicorn, or Amalthea, is Mia Farrow. And you can see clips on YouTube of The Last Unicorn. I think someone even uploaded the entire movie. But you hear her voice, and you read the book, and you can't get it out of your head. That's, you know, this whistly, wavily, kind of like fragile sounding voice. That's the voice I heard in my head of this character. And it's perfect, I thought. So I liked all the characters. Is there any character that really stuck out to anybody who actually finished?
I really like the bull.
The Red Bull?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe, let me read a quick description on Goodreads about it, so if anybody hasn't read it. The unicorn discovers that she's the last unicorn in the world and sets off to find the others. She meets Mendrick, the magician, whose magic seldom works and never as we intended, when he rescues her from Mama Fortuna's midnight carnival where only some of the mythical feasts displayed are illusions. They are joined by Molly Blue, who believes in legends despite her experiences with a Robin Hood wannabe and his unmarried men. Ahead wait King Haggard and his Red Bull, who banished unicorns from the land. So yeah, the Red Bull is basically this character that kind of has banished all the unicorns into the ocean, and they're there except for the last unicorn. She looks around and there's nobody of her kind, which is not unusual to her because they usually don't really bump into each other, and they don't really think about those types of things. They don't concern themselves with all that. They just know that they're special, they're beautiful, you know, and they're unique. But she starts to wonder, well, where's everybody else? And my favorite part is this little bee that comes and tells her, this bee has picked up all this language from all over, and he's relating all these weird little movie quotes and things that are modern to us in this world that's set in a different time. and he's telling her, well, they've been banished by this King Haggard. He's this really decrepit old man that, loves the unicorns and he wants them for himself. And so he has this Red Bull that banished them into the ocean. And so she goes off on a journey. That's her journey, to find the other unicorns and to meet Schmendrick, this magician. That's his journey, is to help her and to find his true magic. Because he's just this regular magician that he works at the carnival, and he's kind of an apprentice magician, and he's not a real magician. He doesn't have real power yet. And then they meet Molly Grew, who's part of their own version of Robin Hood and the Merry Men. She's kind of the poor man's version of Marion, I guess you could say. And so she comes along with them because she loves unicorns and she's never seen one. And I love her character too. She's very funny. And so they finally make it to the castle. And just before they enter the castle, Schmendrick turns her into a woman. He turns her into a woman to save her from the Red Bull that surrounds the castle. And just before the Red Bull gets her, Schmendrick is able to summon this magic and turns her into a woman. And then he gets blamed. He's like, "What have you done?" And he's like, "This is the only thing I could do. I made real magic and turned her into a woman. I can turn her back." And then the rest of the book is spent kind of like her in the castle trying to find where the other unicorns are, and Schmendrick trying to appease King Haggard, who doesn't know that she's a unicorn, but he doesn't know, but he knows. Like, he sees it in her eyes. He says that there's something there, so he starts to suspect. And they're starting to run out of time before King Haggard really goes nuts. Like, he's already nuts, but they're starting to run out of time before he does something drastic to who they call the Lady Amalthea. And at the same time, Haggard's son lives in this castle, Prince Lear, and there's a whole backstory with him where it's not really his son. He's just a child he found. And then this whole story with the town, that there's a possibility that there's a curse on the town around the castle, and basically anybody not related to King Lear or to King Haggard is going to break this castle down. And the fact that they're not related means that his own son can crumble this town and his castle and destroy Haggard. King Lear doesn't know Prince Lear doesn't know any of this. But spoiler, eventually the castle does come crumbling down because of Prince Lear, who isn't related to King Haggard and he didn't know. They finally encounter the Red Bull, and she summons this power in her. She turns back into a unicorn. Schmendrick finds it does seem to resolve all in the last few pages, where she turns back into a unicorn because Schmendrick turns her, and he finds his power that he didn't know he had. She pushes the bull into the ocean, and all the unicorns come out, and they're all released. It's just sad because Prince Lear is this character who's fallen in love with the Lady Amalthea, and he's like this little pitiful prince who he brings back dragon heads and he brings back all these things trying to prove his worth, and they do fall in love in the end, but she realizes she can't stay with him, obviously, because she's a unicorn, and it just wouldn't work out. And so that's kind of
it wouldn't work out.
It just wouldn't work out. She's a unicorn, and it would just be weird, I think. But that was that story.
I think the last unicorn is kind of the gold standard as far as fantasy goes. It has all of the tropes in it that now are overused, and everybody says, "You can't use that." Everybody uses that, but I think that it's definitely one of the first and one of the best in its genre.
Yeah, the imagery is just beautiful. It's just, I love unicorns.
I love unicorns. There were some parts that I would read and go, like, this line that's probably why it took me so long. This is a really short book. Like, in my copy, it's maybe 2 200 or 290. Like that's how many pages? Like about 200 pages. And it took me. That would be one setting normally, but because it was this book, and I just kept going like, man, that's a beautiful line. Like, how am I gonna adapt that for my own? Like, I just kept looking and reading, and like the lines are so well done, the sentences are so well done, and the characters so well crafted that like I repeatedly went through and looked at them, and you know it's a good book when you're writing. Like I have a bunch of writing all over this book, and you know it's good when you write in the margins and highlight things, which I did.
To take in notes and write your your
so
thoughts
long.
down, and definitely.
Yeah. So it's definitely not the Lifetime movie. It's the Downton Abbey.
I think that young adult literature is really sort of the testing grounds for a lot of authors, because I mean, if I were to compare, I only ever saw the movie of The Last Unicorn, years ago. But I remember enough of it so that I could compare it to like Uglies, for example. Like I read in the back of Uglies that Scott Westerfield has written like 5 adult novels, and when you write adult novels, you have a lot of content available to you, like in terms of like resources for what you can write about. You can write about like sexual content or pervasive violence or gore. You can swear a lot in adult novels and no one's going to bat an eye, but you can't do that with young adult literature. So you have to, use the appropriate material that you have to be able to properly construct, eloquent sentences like in The Last Unicorn, and be able to establish, characters properly and establish relationships and storyline and dialogue and stuff. Because if you do that properly, then you have something like The Last Unicorn. If you don't, you end up with this, because you don't have all that literary ammo, if you will. So obviously, I mean, The Last Unicorn is a much better example of writing as a whole. And
I think, let me see, I'm trying to find Kendra, who's another book club member. She rated it, I think she gave it like 3 or 4 stars. She also didn't finish it. She said, so far, hard for me to get into this, but I'm trying to appreciate it as a classic. So it's funny, like, how we've kind of been divided, like the ones who finished it, like, kind of really grasp onto it, and others who didn't, maybe it was hard to get into just because it felt dense, even though it's not really. It's just, we felt like this is a classic, we really have to read it like a classic, and I don't know.
When was it written? How long ago was it written? That might have something to do with it too, because like, when you read contemporary works, and you, just like nowadays with television, when you're watching TV shows and movies that are contemporary, they're edited quickly. They got quick cuts. There's lots of action. There's, things to keep your attention, and it's quick. If you watch a movie from, the 80s or even before that, from the 50s or 60s, it's slower. It's more about character development. It's, it's different. It's for a different audience. So I wonder if that has something to do with it.
1968.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
He said it took him, on Wiki, it took him close to 2 years to write it. And it was hard every step of the way, he said. So that could have been it. Like you can sense that it was time consuming writing this. You could read between the lines. The one thing that threw me off though were how he threw in like music occasionally. He'd throw in lines and lyrics of music in there of the characters singing, and because I had the movie in my head, and the movie also had music in it, a lot of great music, but in the book it felt like it didn't work as well. Like, I don't know why. Sometimes it was thrown in there and it didn't feel like, it kind of threw the story off for me. Like, I couldn't picture them singing this, like, just kind of bursting out into song in the middle of, their discussions. But in the animated movie, it works because it's an animated movie. But in the book, it just didn't work for me. Like, he starts singing her the first lines of a song he wrote for her, and I didn't feel like worked for me.
Yeah. But I mean, you can tell that this book is well written. that it's beautiful prose. Like it's night and day with Uglies.
And there's a, I don't know if anybody remembers the one scene, the Midnight Carnival. Mama Fortuna is this, she's like a witch. She has real power, unlike Svendrick, who, like, he's still discovering if he does. She has this carnival full of different characters, like she's got an ape, she's got a harpy, she's captured the unicorn. She's got all these mythical creatures, and he's put like an easy Svendrick she hires as this cheap magician, and he puts a spell over these animals that they're just like a raggedy little lion and a skinny little ape, and he makes people believe, and when they see them, they see these mythical beasts, and they're like amazed. Except the unicorn and the harpy are the only two characters that are real, the only two mythical creatures that are real. And I thought that scene was so well done, just because they would look at each other, and the unicorn would, the way it was written, the unicorn would see the harpy and know that thing could kill her. That's the only creature in the carnival that could kill her, and would look at her with like such intensity that, like, I know what you are. Like, the harpy would know what she is, and she knew what the harpy was. They knew that they were stuck in this cage. The cages were, there was magic on the cages, so they couldn't escape. But that whole scene, and then Mama Fortuna, knowing that the unicorn was real, saying, you're mine now and you're going to be mine. I know you're going to be my destruction, but I'm going to have you while I can. And the way she interacted with the harpy the same way, like, I know what you are, and I know that you're going to be what you're going to kill me, but I'm going to tell you when you can't kill me. And then when the harpy finally escapes, and does eat Mama Fortuna, she's like, not yet, now. So it's like, that was funny. I love a ton of scenes in this, so.
Right on. Yeah. All right. So, I think that's good for our discussions for our books. Now, we should open it up to talk about maybe what we're going to read next.
Ender's Game.
I know. You know what? Beep, beep, beep. That's what I'm reading right now.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
we should read that.
Yes, because the movie's going to come out in November, so we all should read it and prepare for the movie.
I love that book. That's a really good.
Can anybody put the link to the book club into, because I can't, I'm a mod, but I can't link.
Oh, is it the Goodreads one? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the thing. Let me get the link. Because the poll is up there too, so.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, I'm gonna be so mad if we don't. Oh, I'm not even logged in.
Oh, wait, whoops, that's the link. Let me put it into our chat.
Oops. Oh, you have it, Spectra?
But they're not letting me put the.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Into chat, but I can't put the link into our. There we go. So we just put the link to our book club through Goodreads. That's kind of where we are organizing all of this. So the link's in the chat. If you're not already a part of our Goodreads book club, there you should. I don't know. We've got a list of.
We got a huge master list of all the books that we're looking at to add. We have a poll going. I think the poll's over now, so we're kind of changing around how we're voting for it. Sometimes it'll be by genre. Sometimes it'll be by an actual book title. Sometimes it'll be like what we want. Do we want space? Do we want monsters? What do we want? And so we have most votes for science fiction, so space, planets, aliens, dystopian, and then the next highest for fantasy, so swords, magic, goblins, unicorns, castles, dragons, the whole thing. So more than likely we're going to have one that's a science fiction, one that's fantasy. And some members were saying, well, you know, we should definitely do something where because both of these were kind of young adult. Like, I didn't feel like The Last Unicorn was, it didn't feel like a young adult, like a child story or anything like that.
No, not at all. But it kind of is, I guess.
I guess so. Like,
I don't know, maybe it's not.
The Lord of the Rings is considered, like, children's, isn't it?
I don't know.
Well, The Hobbit was written for kids, but Lord of the Rings,
yeah,
I think, was his adult.
Yeah,
writing.
and The Hobbit didn't feel like that to me. But anyway, so I think what we'll do is whatever the second choice is, or the second or first, will be a little more, I don't want to say elevated, or a little harder, or not as. It won't be the Uglies. Let's just say.
Yeah.
We'll have a balance, which is kind of what we did.
Yeah,
I think
so
the
you
last
could pick.
unicorn was.
You know, you don't have to read both books, but then you can pick, you know, like if you don't want to read both books, you don't have to. You can just kind of pick one or the other, one that suits your taste. We'll kind of try and balance it out so that we have one, you know, because as everybody votes, we'll pick, you know, the top 2 that people wanted to read, so you can have one that's a little more serious maybe, or, you know, maybe a little hardier, and then one that's maybe just for fun.
So, are you guys okay with Ender's Game? Like,
Yes.
seeing that? Yeah.
Yeah,
I am, but I'm a huge fan, and that's just me. So don't let me overpower you guys. But I want to read Ender's Game.
But see, I'm a weird person. I always like to watch the movie first and then read the book.
No, don't do that in this case, because the movie's not going to be good, like, at all. I know it's
Because
not.
I just appreciate having all of the stuff done for me, so I can just sit down and blast through it. I don't have to create a world in my head or anything like that. It's already done.
Well, look,
You know, like that's how what I did with all the Harry Potter books. Like I'm okay with their casting. I thought it was fantastic. With the world that they created, I thought it was great. I read the books and just blasted through them because I didn't have to sit around and think of all the stuff, and I think they did a fantastic job, so I was okay with it. However, maybe if they hadn't done a very good job, maybe it would have been different. I don't know.
You've got to read the book in this case. It's so character heavy that I don't think the actors... I just don't think the director's going to do a good job with Ender's Game, so you have to...
the trailer was amazing.
The trailer's good, but
but
look at the director's portfolio, and you'll see what I'm saying. You know, so I'm just like, it's such an intense book, and it's so good with characters, and I just don't think that it's going to be a good film adaptation. But that's also me giving myself low expectations, so I don't go in with high expectations and then get thoroughly crushed when I watch it.
That's don't go in with high expectations, and you won't ever be disappointed.
Exactly.
No, it's 15 chapters. They're really short chapters. My husband, who doesn't like huge books, he read it in like a couple settings, and he's like, "You got to read it," and that's completely opposite of us. Mm-hmm. So I know it's a good book if it got him into it and he finished it. Like, I know it's him. Yeah. So I think he'll be. Okay. So I think that'll probably be one of our picks, and I don't think anybody's gonna have a. So if any of you guys have any input for any of the other books, we have a list up on the site. You know, I think it would be a good discussion for our next book. You know, let us know.
What about Extra Lives? Why Video Games Matter? Who wrote that book? Do you guys know anything about that book?
I heard about it. I don't know. I think maybe Morgan Roulette, SC, if anybody. Mm-hmm. She may have mentioned it at some point, and so I added it to the list. I think that's nonfiction. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I think it's nonfiction. Look at it. They're schooled. One of our members, Trixie, she wrote that. There's a ton, and then the discussions are kind of range from like video game books, like books based on actual video games, to The Handmaiden's Tale, which I haven't read that one either, but I should.
A heavy one.
Yeah, it's a heavy one. Like, I'm trying to keep it to books that, like, keep it to books that we can get through easily, that aren't too heavy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe we should do a gaming like we've got Ender's Game that's like sci-fi. Maybe we should do like gaming for the other one, maybe something game related, or.
David said I am Legend. if you want like a zombie.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit 451. Warm Bodies. Did anybody read that?
No.
No. That's Kendra mentioned a bunch of zombies. She said we need more zombies. Warm Bodies. World War Z. I couldn't get through it. It's like this thick,
Yeah.
and my husband couldn't finish it either. There's a lot of like political, like military descriptions in between, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, I just want the action. So I'll probably wait for the movie, unfortunately, which is
So
probably nothing like the.
Yeah. Turning Eye says I Am Legend. Is that Isaac Asimov? Who wrote that? Who wrote I Am Legend? Do we remember? I don't know.
I
who
don't
wrote
remember, but I know it's completely different from the movie.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for doing zombies, The Forest of Hands and Teeth got really good reviews, and it's a very different take on zombies. I know we want to read like classic zombies. It's kind of an interesting take on zombies that I think might be kind of fascinating.
Like, Warm Bodies is interesting. I just don't know. Should we do two movies that are, or two books that are movies?
No.
Or should we, because then I Am Legend is also a movie, and
Well, I think for now, I mean, we have Ender's Game, so we know we can do that one. I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but we'll have to decide.
I think we should do something video game themed.
Why not do Ready Player One?
I was gonna say that one.
Oh,
Ready
what-
Player One.
That's a really good book.
It's
It's a little sci-fi though, in the sense of like it's near future, I believe, and there are some sci-fi elements, but it's all about video games, like classic video
Okay.
games, the video games of today. It's really good.
Is it? It's not young adult, right?
I don't think so, but I'm not entirely sure. I also listened to the audiobook of that one too, and it was read by Will Wheaton. It was really good.
Oh, cool.
Okay, maybe done. I think that sounds good.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's really good.
Okay, so for next month, Ender's Game and Ready Player One. I think.
Yeah.
Yes, I single-handedly chose the books. Yes, I'm winning the book club.
They're like, C5 City. He's like, what? Everyone doesn't like being inundated with zombie movie books. No, we can do a zombie one next. Maybe.
Yeah.
So I think the chat is generally liking the books we picked, so I expect everybody to read them.
Okay, so there we have it. Those are our books for our next discussion. We've got Ender's Game and we've got Ready Player One. The thread, if somebody, Saber, can you post the thread to our Goodreads book club in there?
Yeah, I'll do it again.
Club discussion.
That's the Goodreads link. And then, do we know when we're gonna have our next meeting? Like, do we have a month to read the books, or?
I usually give us like a month,
Yeah.
so we'll discuss it actually in let's see. So we give ourselves
We're June
this month,
1st right now, maybe July 1st?
July 1st. I think we've
Be good.
Yeah.
caught it up now. Yeah, that should be good.
Okay. Fabulous. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in and participating in our first book club meeting. I love it. It's great.
Thank
Yeah,
you
this is
guys.
awesome. Thank you guys for
Awesome.
joining.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we're going to head out now. Thank you all for hanging out with us and discussing our books. See you next time.
month.
See you next
Thank
month.
you.
Bye.
Bye.